Happy Friday. It's a victory Friday in Philadelphia after the Phillies knocked off the Mets 5-4 in Game 1 of the series. Welcome into our Friday edition of the PHLY Phillies podcast. I'm Renee Washington, joined by Jamie Lynch. We're thrilled to be here because the Phillies took care of business last night. Nick Castellanos really got it all going, helping to drive in 4 out of 5 of the team's runs in the game. And then Jose Alvarado, the closer, just loved the fact that we saw the Phillies hold the lead, and even when the Mets came back to tie things up, the Phillies continued to push the pedal to the metal and do what they do best. So lots to talk about as we dive into the game, but also we have some things that we're going to be talking about later on in the show that you want to stick around for. Jamie's got some hot takes in a sense, as he'll be getting into most disrespected players to ever wear a Phillies uniform. And we've got some more things coming your way besides just game action. So let's dive right in talking about Game 1, Jamie. Your thoughts after watching the Phillies knock off the Mets in a close one. It's always close against the Mets.
Yeah, there was two really great things in my opinion last night. As we, look, I don't think they're going to lose a series to the Mets or anything. It's all about getting ready for the playoffs right now. We talked about, the first week we launched here, that one of Alvarado or Sir Anthony has to come through for you because you need one of those two guys. Having both of them would be obviously awesome. I just don't think that's reality right now. And Alvarado has looked great his last 2 times out. He had some real swing and miss stuff last night. Kimbrel, in a non-save situation, he's historically not good. We'll get into his numbers in a little bit because there's something that irritates me with him. But Alvarado looked awesome. So he's primed and ready for the playoffs. And Nick Castellanos is a man possessed right now. If he can keep this going, because remember, Renee, a year ago, you couldn't really confidently say that you were believing in Nick Castellanos entering the playoffs. He was okay, but he certainly wasn't great. And we'll get into some of the Nick Castellanos numbers. The dude is having a great year for Nick Castellanos. He really is. And right now, if he plays the way he's playing, he can really be the X factor for this team, because if you have him in the 6 or 7 hole and he's giving you, he went deep to left field. He had a little bloop single. He had one up the middle. He kind of did it in all ways. So when you see a hitter going to all fields and kind of taking what's coming to them, it's a great sign. And he looks awesome right now. He really could be a huge factor come playoff time.
Yeah, it's fun to see how Nick Castellanos is continuing to elevate his game. Everyone's got the unbuttoned shirts now. I know his wife, and I'm sure we'll talk about it even more, just kind of like, calm down, guys. No more buttons coming undone. But he's got everybody loosening up their buttons right now. We saw Ranger Suarez, who was showing off, had his buttons undone.
John Smoltz his partner were talking about it last night. Smoltz was like, wow. He kind of sounded like Grandpa Simpson yelling at the clouds there. Just because it wasn't for you, John, doesn't mean it's not for Ranger. He's got a little more swag than you do.
Yeah.
But I do like Smoltz in the booth.
Yeah, and I do also like the fact that you guys are calling for the victory song, because the Phillies got the win. I'm just going to go with the last line. We'll skip the rest. But
do you have it memorized at this point?
Actually, I'm not going to lie, I don't. So that's partly why I went with the last line. The beat, I'm forgetting it. But the victory song, if you missed it, it is on our social media, especially our Instagram. You can check it out for the full victory song. But the Phillies got the win, and we're happy about it. So thanks that you guys are calling out my song. I feel like a SoundCloud artist. This is what it feels like. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, welcome
in. It's Friday. It's a victory Friday.
Phillies got the win.
I'm starting to get irrationally excited for the playoffs again. It's
so close.
Freaking nice to have playoff baseball back. That was such a long decade from 2012 to basically 21, 22. That was a long freaking time. And now it's back to being the standard again.
Yes.
Shout out John Middleton for spending that money. But this is great. It's really exciting. Playoff baseball is just the best. It really is.
It is. And look, as everybody's coming in, saying their hellos and happy Fridays, we can be upbeat. It's a great day. The magic number continues to dwindle as the Phillies are getting closer and closer to clinching that spot. We'll talk about magic numbers later, but this is what we love. We had the same feeling a couple days ago against the Braves. We have it again today after they beat the Mets. When the Phillies are winning, everybody's happier. I feel like people drive better on the roads. The sun shines a little bit brighter. It just makes everything in Philly a lot less chaotic and stressful. But
yeah, my wife said, so I'm a big flag guy at the front door. And all I have is Eagles and Phillies. And the Phillies have been up all year. And my wife the other day said, it's time to put the Eagles out. And I was like, No. We are not going to jinx this yet. It is Red October. And I think everybody's starting to feel it a little bit. I think the ballpark looked a little on the smaller side last night in terms of crowd, but the energy was there. People are starting to feel it. 9 games left in the year. It's really exciting.
It is. And it's the biggest thing that makes it exciting is to see how the team is playing, the numbers, the consistency. That's something that we continue to harp on, because at this point of the season, as we're closing in on Red October, we want to make sure that the Phillies are taking care of business, winning the games they're supposed to win, but also the adjustments, the little details are there. And I love the fact that we saw that yesterday. Again, Ranger Suarez gets things started off. I'm a huge Ranger fan.
I love
Ranger. When Ranger's at the mound, things are better and things are happier. But look, Ranger Suarez did a great job pitching, working all the way into 6.2 innings. But 5 hits, there were those 4 runs. He did give up the 4 runs. But either way, it still wasn't the same as we've seen with the bullpen issues of giving up runs. It felt more controlled. You never felt like it was going to slip away from Ranger and it was going to trickle into 2, 3, 4 back-to-back runs. It was good plays by the Mets, honestly.
Yeah, they just kind of hit them where the Phillies weren't last night. It wasn't Rangers' best night by any means, but it's his first time getting back-to-back wins since mid-June. So that's a really encouraging kind of between-the-ears thing for him to go out there twice in a row and get W's. Ranger is another huge factor in the playoffs. Hopefully you don't see him in the first round. Hopefully you just win games 1 and 2, and you don't need him game 3. Mm-hmm. But we keep talking about it. You're on this collision course with the Atlanta Braves, and that game 3 is a pivotal one. Ranger could play a absolutely huge role this postseason, just like he did last year. So for him to kind of be rounded into form, Alvarado to be rounded into form, and of course Castellanos, those are 3 really encouraging signs for this Phillies squad.
Yeah, and Ranger gave up the home run against Mark Vientos. It was just the second home run he's given up on his curveball all year. I mean, the numbers have been great. As you mentioned, yesterday wasn't his best performance, but at this point in the season, we know what we're going to get from Bryson Stott, which is awesome to be able to say. Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber. It's how do the other guys step up? Who else? And we've talked about in the bullpen specifically, who's going to be the guys that we can count on in the rotation. And right now, Ranger Suarez and definitely Jose Alvarado are rounding out that list. And it's been awesome to see. So
we have a good comment on the chat tonight about tonight's game.
Oh, yeah.
I think Spiral Out says, take the over tonight. McGill versus Walker. That is a good piece of advice. There's going to be some runs scored tonight in South Philly. But yeah, it's a really encouraging sign that 3 pretty critical guys to this, recipe for success are rounding into form. Even Kimbrel last night had some swing and miss stuff.
Yeah.
Let's just get into it because it is driving me nuts. It's driving some other people nuts. His inability to keep guys on the base path. Look, I understand he clearly doesn't care. Runners are 12 for 12 against him this year in stealing bases. He didn't even look at Francisco Lindor last night. And I think the announcer said, that's about as clean of a stolen base as you'll ever see. You have one of the best defensive catchers in baseball. Him and Garrett Stubbs, JT and Stubbs, are both 2 of the top 10 quickest, pitch to release times in baseball. You got to work on this because come playoff time, a guy going first to second on you. Look, in the regular season in May, June, July, you can live with that. That's, not the end of the world. Come playoff time, every base matters. And playoff baseball is all about 2-out hits and runners in scoring position. So to allow people to get in extras a free base or 2 on you is just not good enough. In Atlanta the other night, they stole second and third on him. He didn't even glance at them. So Kimbrel's got to tighten that up. Maybe that falls on JT and Rob Thompson to make sure that gets tightened up. Maybe a spike his water with a little Ritalin before games or something. But that's got to stop because I'm going to get heart palpitations in the playoffs.
Well, we're talking about a collision course with the Braves in the postseason, and I don't know, they may have Ronald Acuna Jr.
Yeah, two guys at the top of their order that are pretty fast.
And steal a lot of bases on a collision course for, I don't know, a 40-70 season. So, it's very much concerning because as we're talking about the attention to detail that's needed, especially in big moments, maybe we can let it slide.
I don't care then.
But come October, definitely even late September, you have to be better at these things. And also the concerning part is, just like we notice it, so do opponents. And they're knowing, okay, if Kimbrel's pitching, this is a guy we can steal bases on. And that's also a concern that now we don't want to have any room or any areas where opponents can have on their scouting reports, this is a game plan, this is an area we can exploit. And right now, Kimbrel is definitely having that issue with us, unfortunately, noticing it, and so do others notice it as well. And overall, I would just say, and I know Spiral Out was saying it in the chat, I know our chat just popped away for a quick moment, but Spiral Out was saying in the chat, like, which is more frustrating? Is it the
We have an AirPlay passcode for you, Tyler. It's 3491.
Yeah, I don't know what just happened here, but hopefully we're still on and everybody else can see us. But either way, are we still good and they're able to see it? Okay, so I know Spiral Out was saying in the comments, Jamie, while Tyler Zulli fixes a tech error here, is it more concerning the pitch clock and the lack of awareness for the pitch clock or the stolen bases? And they're both annoying.
He clearly doesn't care about the pitch clock.
It's just the lack of awareness in general to me is a concern because you're coming in as a reliever in major moments.
Yeah.
And you're allowing these plays that can be game-changing plays.
Yeah, I mean, look, he clearly doesn't care about pitch clock or, kind of looking runners down, but he should. This isn't Craig Kimbrel of, 2015 where he's in his prime and he doesn't really have to worry about that stuff. This is Craig Kimbrel of 2023 where he's still pretty good. He's converting, I think, roughly 89% of his save opportunities this year. Non-save situations, he sucks. But he always has in his career. But yeah, let's not get in the habit of allowing free bases to be stolen because, like you said, it's those high leverage situations, where one single can kind of blow open a game on you. Don't give them that opportunity. I really think that's something they got to address here in the final, 9 games of the year.
Hasn't already been addressed.
I don't know why either, to be honest. Maybe because he's got to do the shoulder flex and it blocks his peripheral vision or something. I don't understand it. I probably never will. But yeah, let's not make this a habit. Yeah,
it's definitely not a habit that is a good one. Let's break that habit. Craig Kimbrel, please, as of yesterday. Hopefully that's the last day we see it.
And while we're on the subject of stolen bases in general, I thought the broadcast last night was really good, actually. I like Smoltz as an announcer.
Yeah.
I always liked Ken Rosenthal. But they were talking about it, and they gave the stat that it's the most stolen bases in Major League Baseball since 1985. Now, Craig Kimbrel is making it very easy for them, but the stolen bases is up. It was an intentional decision by Major League Baseball. With the pitch clock, you can kind of time cadences a little bit better. The bigger bases now, it's technically a little easier. So Major League Baseball wanted this. And as a guy that grew up, watching Ricky Henderson and Vince Coleman and all these guys that were artists at stealing base, I did miss it. I'm not going to lie. But now it's something you have to game plan for more in the playoffs. And how much are the Phillies going to rely on it themselves? And then as we were talking about, especially with Kimbrel and maybe some of these other guys, how much are you going to defend against it consciously here in the playoffs? Because, every base matters come playoff time.
It does, and it's the fundamentals. I mean, we talked about bunting earlier on a previous episode. Stolen bases are up there. I mean, it's just these are the things that can separate you from winning a game, losing a game, and come postseason, you don't want to have a loss be because you're Craig Kimbrell not paying attention, especially with stolen bases so high this season, and Craig's probably contributing to a lot of those numbers now.
He's helping. I mean, the Phillies.
But overall, these are things that you talk about. First to second base, second to third base. That's a major difference.
Yeah.
And so you want to make sure you're not allowing for any areas or ways to have opponents score runs. If you can just, I don't know, have a look and be more aware.
Yeah.
And then it stops that altogether. It's in my opinion, a simple shift of just paying more attention.
The two teams you're probably going to face, and I say two, jinx free that they get past the wild card round. The Arizona Diamondbacks were 4th in baseball this year with 155 stolen bags. The Atlanta Braves are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12th in baseball with 123.
Right.
So the two teams you're potentially here going to collide with are upper half of baseball stolen base teams. So, yeah, let's pay attention to this, Rob. Let's maybe put out a TPS report in the clubhouse or hang something on the bulletin board of maybe we need to be a little more defensive on the stolen base front because it is a bigger factor this year in the playoffs than it's been in a long, long time.
Yeah. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. As you mentioned, the Fox broadcast was good. It was entertaining. Loved the commentary. Yeah. I know it's tonight when it's Taijuan Walker versus Tyler McGill to start things off. It will be on Apple TV. So I know in the chat, Casper and different people are dropping some hints about how to watch on Apple TV.
I love Apple TV broadcasts. I got to be honest with you.
I feel like my Apple TV broadcast, and I don't know if it's my TV, so I don't want to admit this out loud, it always has issues. Does anybody else's have that?
No.
Is it just me?
No, the things I love about it, I think the picture quality is the best in sports. I don't know what Tim Cook's got endless amounts of cash, so maybe he bought or invented like the most high def cameras ever. But I think the camera shots are great. And the other thing they do, which is really cool, I know you can do it locally with the Union as well, and get Dave Leno on the broadcast. You can switch to the local radio.
Right.
And so you don't have to listen to Hunter Pence and some other stooges. You can switch to the best in town, Scott Fransky, and hear that. So it's pretty cool. I do like the Apple broadcast, but I understand why it's a total pain in the ass for some people.
Yeah.
If you want to see me get angry, put an important Phillies game on a Facebook-only broadcast.
Oh, gosh.
And you will see me turn into the Hulk real quick.
Yeah. People are agreeing. The best part is you can switch the audio.
It's awesome.
And then also the walk-up songs. That is nice, too. I don't know. I wish there was a way that we didn't have to switch from like one streaming app to the next and watch all of our games in the same spot. Oh, there is a way, cable. But
okay, boomer.
I miss cable. I still have my cable for that exact reason because it is nice to be able to just flip through the channels versus having to flip through app to app.
Yeah, I do miss the last button.
I love the last button, and you just quickly can click from
Xfinity, if you want to advertise with us, I do miss the X1 platform.
I will happily advocate for cable because moving from Apple, I mean, I was even like every day I feel like I'm watching multiple games at once, and instead of clicking the last button, I had to click in and out, and I do have voice remote, so I can just say Phillies on Apple TV or whatever game on Paramount or whatever game, but it still is annoying to have to do that extra step. So,
apparently Hunter Pence's burner is in here. Will, I'm sorry, I won't talk poorly about Hunter Pence. I did like Hunter Pence when he was here. I just think he tries to be a little too
Flyers
goofy.
Game on MySpace, John Dickerson. Now we're taking a trip down memory lane.
John Dickerson's our chat comedian. He's pretty funny.
He's always and is always actively also reminding people to hit the like button, which I like, John.
Subscribe.
Thank you for that. Subscribe, like. Thank you, John. But also, I remember my Princess Nene X3 days on MySpace, an Ice Princess. I don't know why I was stuck on
I was
Princess.
never on MySpace, so
that was like middle school for me. So I was very much into MySpace
age myself here, Renee,
and everything.
I didn't even get a Facebook account until I was out of college.
Oh, see, I was so young when Facebook came out. I was part of the group that had to fake our email to be able to get on Facebook. Did you know that was a thing?
Because I know in the beginning you needed like a college.
You had to be in high school.
Oh, high school.
Was it college?
You needed some kind of .edu
exactly.
originally.
And I didn't have one of those. I was too young to be on Facebook, so we figured out how to hack
bad girl.
And be able to use other people's
girl
emails.
Of Ewing, New Jersey. Look out.
Such a rebel, guys. I was sneaking onto Facebook because MySpace was closing out. Yeah, top 8 Flyers players on MySpace. It makes you wonder, Tyler, who would be in your top 8 right now? I don't know, but nobody on the Flyers. It's definitely not the case. I'd have Nick Castellanos is definitely a front runner for my top 8 on my space.
Let's talk about Nick.
Absolutely.
Because I didn't realize what a career year he's having.
It's out of this world, the numbers that he's putting up.
And it's kind of weird because, you do see that first half of the season when he's an all-star was great. And then there was 2 really rough patches.
Right.
He's kind of moved up and down the order. He was a little salty about going to 7th at one point. I think Matt Gelb wrote a story about that. But he's been the consummate professional. We got a tweet last night from a fan, hopefully a diehard, which you can become one at allphly.com, by the way. But tweeted at Jess Castellanos, his wife, and said, "Can you please thank Nick for me? He gave my children sweatbands in Atlanta last week during the series." And he gets that. And that's I always will respect every professional athlete that understands what that means to a kid. Because as a kid that used to go down to the vet and try to get balls signed, and I would go to athlete appearances just to see them and be around. The memorabilia is cool. But that connection of just that you can make on a kid, he understands that, and it's really, really cool to see.
Yeah.
And not even to mention, he's having a career high in RBIs this year, which I didn't realize. I knew he had been a low hundreds RBI guy twice before, but he's now eclipsed it at 104 on the year. He's hitting above his career batting average. He's getting on base more than his career average, and he's high in OPS for a career high. He's there with his home run numbers. His RBI total is his highest of his career, and he's just having an overall great year. And as we talked about, he really could be this X factor because he wasn't playing this well last year. You're getting a better Nick Castellanos now. And Tyler, we lost our screen again. But yes, you're getting a much better Nick this year than last year.
Yeah.
And this was something the broadcasting crew last night talked about. And they're not wrong when they say that Bryson Stott is the X factor from last year to this year. But you can't sleep on Nick Castellanos either because he's playing so much better.
No, you can't. I mean, 102 RBIs on the season, as you mentioned, a career high. Nick Castellanos is in my top 8. I love that. Patrick Glynn was also saying we would be in his top 8 on my base, which is fantastic. But Nick is definitely someone that would be in my top 8 because of just the way that he brings so much excitement and he's rough around the edges and sometimes has you scratching your head, but then also has you cheering and it's Nick's greatest strength is the fact that he's willing to take those chances of being the guy and to drive in 4 runs. I mean, he hits another home run also in that. So 4 home runs in the last 4 games, which is fantastic, the consistency. But also, as you talk about off the field, off the pitch, that what Nick is doing to help connect with, whether it's his teammates and the unbuttoning of the shirts, which I know we joke about, but those are the types of things that help people feel like they're part of the family. Nick, that's his
Castellanos,
signature.
I think, is saying, back off, ladies. She said, I appreciate the enthusiasm and the love, but no more buttons, ladies.
I don't blame Jess about that. We've talked about Nick, and I know AJ Jones, who isn't on the show right now.
My daughter's teacher, big Nick fan.
There's a lot of huge Nick fans. I'm a Nick fan as well. I do enjoy the fact that Nick brings you a little bit of that bad boy vibe.
Yeah, and they're a cool family. They are.
And also just getting others involved with that too. I know we talked about when he helped Rojas unbutton his, and then obviously we're seeing Ranger Suarez do it. It's contagious. It's getting everybody kind of feeling that, and even the Scooby-Doo side of things. I love that Scooby-Doo is so actively talked about in the broadcasts. I agree with you guys in the chat. He loves Scooby-Doo. We love the fact that Scooby-Doo's being brought in, and then also off the field, the connection with the players. With the fans is a beautiful thing that he's able to help be so selfless. I mean, there are some people, and I'm not going to say names, but there are some athletes that when they're playing really well, they're not as nice to other people and they're not as giving, but to be able to still be that same personality off the diamond, and you're now helping to inspire the next generation. We love all those mushy gushy things.
Yeah, no, he's having. It's a great story this year because like he struggled last year, and it was his first year here. He struggled
in the early parts of this year.
Yeah, and Trey Turner, I think he kind of was like seeing himself last year. For whatever reason, when some of these guys get paid and go to a new town, there does seem to be an adjustment period. I don't know if that is, it's like the human aspect of it is you're getting your family to a new city, you're establishing roots, you're setting up, your new home, and your kids are in a new house and a new school. And I do think there's that human element of things where it just, and not to mention the expectations of a Trey Turner salary. Nick Castellanos is a $100 million man, must be pretty cool. But I do think there's that human element of adjustment, and I think Nick was pretty critical in, lending a shoulder to Trey early this year, being like, man, I know what you're going through. I did it last year, and not that Trey needs it, but it's always encouraging when a teammate's like, bro, you're a better player than this. Don't worry, just keep working hard. It's going to work out.
And that's something I always tell people. I don't care who you are. I don't care what sport you're playing. You can never just move into a whole new team and just seamlessly transition. And the players that are able to do it, I look at even like a Tom Brady with Tampa Bay to be able to come right in and win a Super Bowl. Across sports, you rarely see that happen where a player steps right in and is able to elevate their team to be a postseason team or a championship team, because it does take time to get acclimated. It's a whole new way of doing things. The clubhouse, the routine, you're living in a new area, especially if you have young kids. You can say this as a father of young kids.
Oh, yeah.
There's an adjustment period for your family as well.
Definitely.
It's not as simple. We're not talking about video games where you just
my
move
dog
a player.
Bootsy had diarrhea everywhere when we moved.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Yeah. Exactly.
Everywhere.
Exactly. Oh wow.
The dog needed an adjustment period.
Wow.
Let alone
dog.
the baby.
Oh
yeah,
my
Bootsy was struggling.
Wow.
Poor
the
girl.
dog had diarrhea when you moved.
All
Look at
over.
that.
What are those sisal rugs? And it gets in the grain and the fabric. It was just.
And imagine then trying to go play a baseball game after you're cleaning up poop.
It's not fun when you walk home and your dog has deuced on the carpet. It just. It's a tough adjustment period. Let alone babies puking everywhere, your sleepless nights.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, like you're saying, JB, and not to open up a can of worms here, clearly I hit a soft spot there, but overall, it definitely just takes time. You're trying to learn teammates' tendencies are a big part.
Your new route to work.
Your new route to work. What's the traffic like?
What hoagie can I trust around here?
Where can I eat? There are so many things beyond just like playing your sport that factor into it. So it does take some time to really get acclimated and get used to what that may be like. But another way that you can get used to easily acclimating to go check out any sport is through the Game Time app. Now, the Game Time app allows you to be able to find great prices and to be able to find dates and opportunities to go see your favorite concerts and games. Head on over to the Game Time app. Use the code PHLY to get that $20 off. The Game Time app has our backs here in Philly, and they've got yours too, so you can be able to check out any game that you'd like. Now, you guys are really rocking in the chat right now, and we're trying to keep up. We will get to Scott Rolen and the booing conversation. Don't you worry. We've got more coming around that there. But let's talk about the bullpen first, because overall, we have been very, very heavily scrutinizing the bullpen. We all have been. But, Jamie, is the bullpen a little bit better than we've been thinking right now?
Yeah, it has been. I think with Hoffman and Alvarado, you just kind of were waiting for one of Sir Anthony or Alvarado to kind of turn that corner a little bit. They both have been on the IL at times this year. And as we've seen with guys, you're seeing it with Ranger now. It takes them a little while to come off that IL and get back in a groove again. And I want to say this, and I believe it's a jinx-free statement, that Jose Alvarado has turned the corner and he's back to being a reliable 8th inning or 9th inning guy. When he's coming out right now, I have full confidence in him. And that's something that's making me feel great about this playoff run. But Hoffman has been, a great story this year. And we've actually put in a request with the team to talk to him. So hopefully that's something we can do, because he was minutes and hours away from going over to Japan earlier this year. He had a contract in his hand, was ready to go. The Phillies ended up matching more or less an offer for like around $1 million. And he has been an absolute savior of the season. And there was an incredible stat that was broken in Atlanta the other day, which I was even unaware of. how good of a stat this was. So his hiccup on Wednesday where he allowed a runner, how dare he? It ended an 11-game scoreless streak. Over that 11-game span, Hoffman had allowed only 2 hits, and opponents were hitting .056 versus him with an on-base of 167 and an OPS of same thing, .56. It broke a streak of 23 consecutive road appearances in which Hoffman had allowed 0 earned runs for the Phillies. Now, the only Phillies, to put it in context how Phillies dominant that streak was, the only Phillies with a longer consecutive scoreless appearance streak on the road was Ryan Madson, who allowed 0 earned runs in 25 consecutive appearances back in 2011. Ryan Madson, absolutely one of the best homegrown pitchers the Phillies have had in the last 20 years. But here's the company he's in. For Phillies relievers with an ERA below 1 on the road in the expansion era. Now, this comes into play because if you do win that wild card round, you're going to be down in Atlanta on the road. And Hoffman has shown you a body of work this year on the road that you really feel strong about. He's right up there with Jose Mesa in 2001, Brad Lidge in 2008. We all remember that one. He was pretty damn good that year. Jeff Hoffman currently, Billy Wagner in 2005, and Ken Giles in 2015. You can say what you want about the Phillies. They have a history of good bullpen closers. Like that list, those guys were all upper echelon closers in their career, or at least setup men to some degree. But Giles, Wagner, Lidge, and Mesa were all very good closers at times. Some of them, Giles, didn't last as long as maybe some would have thought. But the fact that Hoffman is there in the annals of Phillies history with some heavyweights kind of puts in perspective how great of a year he's actually having.
Yeah, and I know some people in the chat are saying similarly, like they didn't even expect that. They're surprised by it.
Not at all.
That number is very surprising we didn't even realize it was 11 games in a streak that was going on. But when you look at the bullpen, we've talked so much about the struggles of it that we have lost the in-betweens of how pitchers have been coming in and doing a good job, and Hoffman being one of them. Even last night, you look, not a single run given up, 3 hits given up between the 3 relievers.
Kimbrel may just sweat a little bit, but it was all right.
but it was fine. And then overall, when you talk about that list of Phillies relievers that Jeff Hoffman is in company with, that's only one other pitcher in the last decade.
Yeah.
So it just also speaks to, I know
they traded then pretty quickly thereafter.
Right. We speak to just kind of the where the team is at now versus that we know there was the streak of the times we don't like to talk about when the Phillies were struggling. It was pre-struggles that we really had strong pitchers that are on this list and strong relievers. So it also might be it is a sign of the change of the times for the Phillies that, you're having these historic numbers that you're now in the conversation with Phillies like, as you're talking about Jose Mesa and different Phillies pitchers. So
yeah, and somebody in the chat there just said, I think it's Reggie Dad. Now, I don't forget this, but he points it out. And Brad Lidge, he was perfect that year, 48 for 48. We all know that. But it was an emotional roller coaster. That was a taxing 48 for 48. The amount of times Brad Lidge would get runners on second and third with like 1 out and get out of it was absolutely amazing. But as that 2008, it's, the starting pitching, baseball goes in like waves. Sometimes you need starting pitching to rely on. Sometimes you just need a good bullpen and good offense. Sometimes an elite offense alone can get it done. And the Phillies kind of were a perfect, piece that year.
Oh, yeah.
And Brad Lidge was, he could have made the case he was up there for team MVP. But, man, he made you sweat that year. That was not an easy 48 for 48. So hopefully we don't have to go through that up and down, but it does kind of appear Kimbrel as of late, his whip over since the All-Star break is almost double what it was the first half of the season. So he is kind of giving you that Brad Lidge, heart murmurs type of up and down, nail-biting type of run. Let's hope, because I do bite my nails come playoff time, that I'm not ripping any hangnails off, thanks to, it's a bad habit. I try to take care.
I used to bite my nails.
Yeah.
Until
it's just, for some reason, playoff baseball has me on the edge of my seat more than anything else. Is that such a nervous tick? Yeah, it really, I don't know. There's something about playoff baseball that's, I don't want to say more intense than playoff football, but it's more like nerve-wracking. For some reason, I really, I pace. I'll bite my nails. I kind of go through it in the playoff baseball.
Wonder what other people's nervous tics are. I think for me, it's more just the edge of the seat. I'm kind of jittery, actually.
Yeah.
I think it's always.
It's not a comfortable watch.
No, it's not. And I always. It's funny because when I watch games of any sport, I find myself I'm playing. I'm swinging, I'm catching, I'm sliding. I naturally am just playing with the game. And I think it's that instinctual athlete response of put me in, coach. It's a big moment. Put me in, regardless of what the sport is.
It's easier to play than to watch.
But yeah, I'm glad that we also have, speaking of watching, people that are watching us. Casper, have a great rest of your workday. Thanks for joining us during your lunch period.
Oh, thank you,
I know
Casper.
Tyreek also said you sprinted away to get your daily Phillies fix. So glad that you were able to catch us and not miss us. We have talked about Nick Castellanos. We have talked about last night's game and also the bullpen, specifically Craig Kimbrell and his lack of awareness. And we've got more to talk about because we've got to get into Scott Rolen. But first, let's talk about FOCO, where you are able to check out any sort of sports merchandise, entertainment apparel, gear, toys, collectibles, whatever it may be, bobbleheads, I always say, whatever it is that you're looking to check out. And you can use the code that is on your screen, PHLY, to get a nice 10% off when you are using FOCO. So head on over to FOCO, get that discount, check out the things that they have there that you're able to purchase. And for you guys, there's also an opportunity for you to check out Scott Rolen back at Citizens Bank Park. Now, we have wondered and talked about in the return of Scott Rolen, we're going to see the, after, a career in Philly, that Scott Rolen's going to be on the Walk of Fame, as it's called. And so overall, Scott Rolen hasn't been the most warm welcomed in Philly athlete and player.
Can I just say
I'll let
this?
you jump in, Jamie.
It's been 21 years. Get
21.
the fuck over it. All right? Let the man have his night. If you're thinking, and I don't think this is going to happen, but there's some old heads out there that probably still resent Scott Rolen and this and that. Get over it. If you go down there with the intention of booing Scott Rolen on a Wall of Fame night, go touch some grass. Go ground yourself to this earth. Go have a beer. Walk away. There's no reason to boo a man on his Wall of Fame induction night. He's one of the best third basemen in franchise history. He gave you 6 or 7 years here. That was really freaking good. I think he won 3 or 4 Gold Gloves while he's here. If you want to blame anyone in the Scott Rolen situation, blame the Philadelphia Phillies, because they were a cheap organization back then. They were an underperforming organization back then. Scott Rolen just called them out for it. Scott Rolen was a tremendous player. He's in the Hall of Fame. We all know he went in as a Cardinal in the baseball heaven comment. If that's still bothering you over 2 decades later, get a life. Let the dude have his night. Cheer him on. He's a great Philly. I know that triggers people to even hear that, but get over it. It was 21 years ago, as we said. Let the bygones be bygones. His first 4 years in Philadelphia, the team was 78 games under 500. That is bad baseball, and they were cheap on top of it. I know he eventually got offered at the time the most expensive deal in baseball history, but he said, I don't even care about that unless you're going to invest in the rest of the roster so we can compete. They were the second worst record in the NL over those first 4 years. There's a couple quotes because Jason Stark actually sat down with Larry Boa. Scott Rolen declined the interview. And that type of stuff kind of adds a little fuel to the fire here. But Larry Boa was... and he'll admit this, he admits it in the story. He was a bit of a hothead manager back then, and he said, if hindsight being 2020, I wish I could have tapped into Scott and his tendencies and been a little more kind of empathetic to handling him. But Scott played on some really, really bad Phillies teams. All he wanted was for them to compete. And, back then as an early teen, I was like, yeah, I want that too, Scott. Can the Phillies stop being cheap? And this is a huge credit to John Middleton and the current ownership group because they changed everything. You were going to give that one contract out back then, but what were you going to do for the rest of the team? And they didn't have that. Scott Rolen did have this quote in the Jason Stark article that says, "The fans in the stands in Philadelphia have a passion about them. They're dying to win. And if those fans don't have that passion, they're not in the stands. There's a reason our attendance last year didn't reflect the team we had on the field. And the reason for that is these fans are upset with ownership, and they have every right to be." Scott Rolen is saying exactly what you wanted a leader of the Phillies back then to say, that the ownership needs to be better. And now, in present day, they are. But Scott Rolen, don't go down there and boo him tonight. He's one of the most disrespected Phillies of all time. We talked about Ryan Howard yesterday. He's absolutely up there for me. And then I came up with the big three, and the third would be Bobby Abreu. I just think the way people talk about Bobby Abreu is silly in this town because he wasn't Aaron Rowan diving nose first into the outfield walls. So this Scott Rolen thing, I didn't even realize it was kind of like a sensitive little subject for me there. But if I hear a boo tonight, like, you're a creep. Like, seriously, just let the guy have his night.
Well, I think at some point we have to draw a line in the sand, and I get frustrated because, first of all, it's just another thing that will make Philly fans look bad. And I know we don't really care about how we look, but can we for once take the high road and just not boo?
Do you
just
think it's going to happen?
I hope not.
I don't think it is.
I think right now with where the team is and where the fans are and everybody's, especially after winning yesterday, I think the team and the fans are in a better place that we will not see boos. There will probably be the few people, the knuckleheads in the ballpark that are booing or saying something. But I also get frustrated with the fact that athletes at the end of the day want what's best for their careers, and we don't always have to agree with that, and that's okay. And first of all, how many of us can be Scott Rolen? I don't know about you guys in the chat. I could not be a Scott Rolen, so who am I to sit and boo Scott Rolen, who was a Rookie of the Year, won 3 of 8 career Gold Glove awards in Philly, was up for MVP. When you look at the career that Scott Rolen had, whether in a Phillies jersey or not, it still was remarkable. And so I know there was a comment in the chat about, like, where do we also stand on the wall of fame,
I don't think you need to do it every year. Let me just say that.
I mean, it's something that teams like to do from the business side to honor the former players and bring people back to the ballpark. I agree. It's definitely a chance to monetize, get some more ticket sales, get some more seats and butts. But overall, I think and hope nobody boos, and I hope that you can just be positive. And regardless what your feelings are about Scott Rolen, this is not the time to boo him.
Randy Rubar says, "I wouldn't boo him, to be clear, but I don't think the Wall of Fame is necessary." I disagree a little bit. I think 6 or 7, what is it, 6 years or 7 years? 6 years is enough. Look, if Mike Lieberthal can make the Wall of Fame, then Scott Rolen, by that standard, certainly deserves the Wall of Fame. I don't think they need to elect somebody every single year, but as you said, there's a business element to this.
There's a business, and honestly, that's a big part of what every team does. Schools do it. I've been inducted into the Hall of Fame. There's a lot of teams that do it. It's a way to also keep, it's more than just about the fans, guys. It's also a way to keep the former players connected. So by them knowing, okay, I'm going to get honored, the Phillies are appreciating me for what I did at my time there. That's something special. Maybe I'm more likely to come around more, or just, it's all about creating those positive relationships. And I can say that as a Hall of Famer myself. I feel like they're doing it more for the player, not as much the fan specifically. So that's where, for fans that want to boo, you can leave that booing at the door. Don't bring it into the ballpark with you, because it's about Scott Rolen's family, and just being able to have that moment to, like, pause and reflect on the years, even if it wasn't his entire career, the years that were spent at Citizens Bank Park.
Yeah, and look, the Phillies did suck back then, and they didn't spend money. So, Scott Rolen said what I wanted as a fan that was a diehard back then. Go spend some money and make this team compete. I believe it was his last year here. They finally were pretty good. I think they were like the second best team in the NL up until like September, made the playoffs. And then right after he left, that's when Chase Utley, I believe, was at low A the year Rolen left. I think Jimmy was in double A, about to be called up. The tide did turn quickly after. And it was almost like the Phillies had to become a big spending team because they actually had guys in their minor league system that were bearing fruit. Cole Hamels was, I think, in low A at the time as well. So, they almost had to spend because they had, doorstep of Hall of Fame type of players. So, Scott Rolen, who knows? Maybe he sparked a little fire under the Phillies' asses and made them realize that, Yeah, he was right. We have to be a better ownership group if we're going to compete, because historically they don't have the farm system that could hang with an Atlanta Braves team who just dominated the 90s. So, good on Scott Rolen.
I know you brushed over this very quickly, but I want to give you another chance to share your list of the most disrespected players to ever wear a Phillies jersey. As we're talking about Scott Rolen, there are players that maybe just were on the Phillies, maybe even at the wrong time, and that we saw things that we didn't like then, but now years later can look back on and say it might have been more about the organization or management or things beyond them, or even just in general, like you're saying, Tyreek, where we're just so excited with how things are now. We can be more positive about it. Yeah, but there are still those guys that unfortunately did not really get the love that maybe they deserve. Who are your three? Scott Rolen's
Ryan
one.
Howard, Scott Rolen, and Bobby Abreu. All three of them are, one is a Hall of Famer in Scott Rolen. The other two, I think, are doorstep, but probably not in type of guys. But certainly, eligible and worthy of the consideration and talk. Ryan Howard wasn't disrespected during that 5 or 6 year period. The way people talk about him in hindsight, I find very disrespectful. Once the shift was implemented on him and pitchers started pitching him low and outside and he couldn't lay off of it, and then he was never able to bounce back from the Achilles, people always seem to have that last 3 years of kind of his downturn on the forefront of their minds when they talk about him now, instead of realizing that 6 year period was unprecedented in the history of baseball. I mean, when you think about his MVP year, he was hitting .316 and hitting 56 home runs with 145 RBIs. Those are not normal numbers. So Ryan Howard gets talked about in hindsight in a disrespectful manner, instead of, more appreciative of that. And he's a champion.
And Rick Sachs is saying he's number one, probably.
I mean, it really is. Bobby Abreu is dragged through the mud a little too much for me in that same kind of way. He was here during also that down area. I think Abreu and Rolen overlapped by a year or two, if I'm not mistaken. And Abreu ended up being, Rollins' best man in his wedding and stuff. But he was here during a down era of Phillies baseball as well. So I just think the way he's talked about, Bobby would give you a home run when you were down 8-1, and it was hollow stats. Abreu couldn't, dive into the wall, or he was actually a pretty good fielder with a cannon of an arm. Yeah. He just played the position kind of intelligently, he wasn't going to go run into walls like Aaron Rowan. So I think he's disrespected, and then obviously I just went on a Rolen rant. So I think the three of them, the way they're talked about, is a little disrespectful. So, if you have one in the chat, please share them with us if there's anybody else we're missing. But those were the big three that came to my mind, and they're all great career players.
Yeah, La Leche, still one of only 5 players to have a record of 288 home runs, 400 steals during his career. Nobody else besides him and 4 others have reached that benchmark. So, I mean, I know there are times where people like to pick at how someone scores runs or how they play, but at the end of the day, 99% of the people that are really attacking these 3, for example, can't do half the things that they're doing. And that's what always, it's all right, let me see you do it then. Let me see you go out there and play like Ryan Howard, or try to come back from an Achilles, or be Bobby Abreu, or be Scott Rolen. Let me see you try to do half the things they're doing. So I just get irritated when people complain that really can't hold a match to what those players have accomplished. And regardless how you feel about it, you don't have to love them, but you can just at least respect their talent. So I know in the chat you guys are saying some things about Abreu specifically. He took walks when we needed RBIs, and he was allergic to the warning track, Rudavad saying. So you've got your thoughts. I agree, they're not perfect, but maybe very much overly disrespected.
Yeah, Reviadad says, Abreu was a little bit Andre Iguodala, where he was the best player on a bad team.
Yeah.
I think Bobby Abreu was a little bit better than that. When you look at his numbers and the control of the strike zone and his ability to get on base, a lot of people say hollow numbers and he took walks when he shouldn't have. Or how about the fact that he was just a really good baseball player? So, I think it's an interesting discussion there. And Frank Dingus, what up? How you doing? And everybody that participates in the chat, we love you and appreciate all of you guys hopping in here. And when I say guys, I mean guys and girls. Guys,
I'm not one of those.
I'll just say, hey, if I saw a table of girls When
And I don't
used to
say
wait.
girls.
Well,
ladies or women.
I would say, hey guys, how you doing? So like that's just I've always just been a hey guys.
I'm a geyser. I think I don't like when people a geyser. I don't like when people are like,
faithful.
there's ladies here too, and you don't have to.
I'm just a guy's person.
It's in Spanish. It's like that too. If there's men and women together, you would say like.
Oh, I failed Spanish, so go on.
Oh, okay. But in Spanish language, if you wouldn't say muchachos and muchachas, you would just say muchachos. It's always the masculine. So it's in other languages too, and it's not something like disrespectful. But I don't say girls. No. You're a big girls person. I picked up on because you refer to me as a girl.
I talk about the girls.
Yes,
my girls.
It's a girl dad thing.
I call them the girls a lot.
That's like me saying, well, you say the boys, but that's like more of like a boys are back in town. You don't really say it as like,
you know who else is back in town? DraftKings. And I took your money last night, DraftKings. I had the Niners minus the 10.5 last night. And it's and I got a 50% profit boost from DraftKings. With another week of football, DraftKings is keeping you in the action with great offers every single game day. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Throw down 5 on any of this week's matchups to walk away an instant winner. Our own Rich Hoffman in his daily newsletter decided to give out his picks. So he's got like 4 or 5 picks for you if you want to subscribe to that newsletter on allphly.com. DraftKings isn't stopping with new customers. All customers can take advantage of 2 new offers every game day this September. Football's more fun when you're in on the action, so download the app now and sign up using code PHLY. New customers can bet $5 and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL, with code PHLY. The crown is yours. Here we go. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccp.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, licensee partner Golden Nugget, Lake Charles, 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. We know this. It's void in Ontario. See sportsbook.com/. Damn it. See sportsbook.draftkings.com. There's the double dot got me /football terms for eligibility, terms and responsible gaming, resources, bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. Eligibility and deposit restrictions apply.
Nicely done.
The double
Jamie.
dot.
The double dot. I was like rolling with you there.
I know.
You had it. You had it. I want to see how fast you can do that.
God,
all right.
suck.
So, yes, we definitely got to record the ad reads. We're going to challenge you and make a game out of it to see how fast.
I'm going to get Tyler to start putting a timer up there.
Yeah,
and I'm going to challenge myself to beat the prior days.
That's literally what I just said.
No, did you? Did I black out?
I was literally saying the exact same thing.
Oh,
I was like,
I guess I
we're
blacked
going to
out.
have to challenge you and time you to see how fast you can do it. And you're like, no, I'm going to have Tyler time me and challenge me to see how fast. It's fine. We're just
Friday.
on the same page. You're just
I'm thinking about those afternoon beers.
Stuck on the on that. So let's talk about those afternoon beers because yesterday the Phillies, we saw them play a fantastic game led by Nick Castellanos, obviously, who finished with a homer, was involved in 4 and helped 4 of the 5 runs for the Phillies win. We saw Jose Alvarado, the closer, come in. Ranger Suarez was okay, was solid. Also, we saw pregame, Trey Turner had a nice sit-down interview talking about how Trey's been not only more motivated since that standing ovation, but also allowed him to physically be able to take a step back and look at his mechanics, which has helped him just improve overall his at-bat. So he's been more relaxed, it's eased his mind, and allowed him to be able to be the Trey Turner that we see of today. So, Jamie, I'm curious as we head into today's game, who you think is going to have a strong performance? Is it going to be Nick Castellanos continuing to be Cassie clutch? Do you think it's someone else's time to step up? Obviously, we know the pitching matchup. As we're looking at this one, we've talked about Taijuan Walker getting a start here. Do you think this is Walker's day?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. I'm probably going to bet the over on DraftKings tonight. Good chance of that happening. I do think Castellanos stays in the zone here. And I might, for some reason, with these, who do you think is going to go yard tonight type of conversations, I always just trust the gut. Now, I might be hungry because I didn't have a big breakfast, but my gut is telling me Trey Turner goes yard tonight. I'm going to take Trey Turner to go yard. I'll take the over tonight, but I do think Nick, he's locked in right now. He's going to all fields. His home run last night was the longest of the year for him. I believe it was the fastest exit velocity off of his bat this season, and it might have been the fastest of the StatCast era of his career. So he's really dialed in right now. I expect him to get on base a couple times tonight. I think the Phillies take it again tonight, in spite of Taijuan Walker. I really wish I had confidence in him righting the ship, but I do not.
Okay. I could see Trey having a big day. Alec Boehm, also, we haven't even talked about the home
playing
run.
great too.
Ball off the shin. Next one's out of the ballpark. Alec Boehm's been playing very well also. Rick Sachs is saying Harper goes yard today. I could definitely see that. Tyreek Realmuto's grinding your gears. Definitely have seen some ups and downs, but I'm feeling like we're going to see a more consistent JT. And then Schwarber, maybe with a first pitch home run, Tim is saying. I'd love to see that. I hope that is correct.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely would be a great way to start off the game if a leadoff home run from Kyle Schwarber comes into fruition. So yeah, you know what? I have a better idea. Let's all be correct. Kyle's going to start us off with a home run. Harper's going to come and go yard today. Nick Castellanos will continue. JT Realmuto will not grind our gears and will play a fantastic game. And then Walker's going to just do a good job. And we're not going to have as many issues with, let's just say, a good job. We won't have high expectations.
I want to believe you. But, that basically 7 ERA in his last 8 starts has me feeling a little sad. But you know what doesn't have me feeling sad? Magic numbers.
Let's talk about them real quick before we wrap up.
Yeah, the magic number is technically, and I believe we have a graphic for, it's technically, in reality, it's 4, but it's technically 5 because...
I like 4 better.
4 does sound a lot better. The reality of the situation is we can talk about it as 4. The reason it's technically 5 is because if the Brewers lose out and the Cubs decide all of a sudden, and Tyler, if you have the wild card standing graphic as well, we can throw that up. The Cubs have lost I think it's 11 of their last 13 or something like that. They just do not want to make the playoffs all of a sudden.
They keep losing.
The Brewers, in theory, could lose out, and the Cubs could surge. That's why it's technically 5, but in reality, it's 4. It's 6 to clinch home field here in Philadelphia, which certainly looks like it's going to happen. But the Arizona Diamondbacks, it really appears as though the Phillies and Diamondbacks are going to be playing October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Hopefully, there we go. There's the magic number 5. But it's really 4. October 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Hopefully, those games are here in Philadelphia because we all know how Citizens Bank Park gets in the playoffs. The Diamondbacks are good. They're a pesky team, but I still, feel pretty confident in facing them. The Brewers likely will be hosting the team that gets in there, whether it be the Reds or the Marlins or, San Fran's all but kind of dead here in my opinion. But it certainly looks like the Phillies are on a collision course for the Arizona Diamondbacks in Philadelphia. And then if you can take that on, you're going to be heading down to Atlanta and you get the luxury of playing the Braves.
Yes. And I do think the Phillies are able to lock in the home game for the home series. And then also, I do think we're going to also start to see them resting some starters, possibly giving some extra days off. Drew, to your question, I would imagine maybe a little bit. I mean, there's 9 games left now, so maybe it's a couple more games before we start seeing some days off.
They might just treat Wheeler and Nola starts as go pitch 3 innings and just get your pitch count to where you would on your regular day or whatever.
Yeah,
just
I think
to keep
it's
them,
a way to manage it.
Yeah.
Within the game without having
and
to
then you'll
fully
see
rest.
Hoffmans and Sanchez's and those guys a little bit more. And somebody earlier had asked about the 40-man roster and if we can expect anything. Shout out to Orion Kirkinen and Johan Rojas, who won the Paul Owens Award yesterday from the team as the best player and pitcher. Orion is one to keep an eye on. He is not on the 40-man roster yet, but if anybody tweaks anything or gets a little injured in these next 9 days, you could look for him to possibly be that late call-up, hard-throwing arm out of the pen. So that's one to keep an eye on. I don't think there's going to be any other roster tweaks outside of that, but if he pitches well, you could possibly see him. Then who knows, does Rob Thompson feel comfortable going to a rookie in a postseason spot?
Yeah.
Probably not, but you never know. Baseball is weird.
Stranger things have happened. So we'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye on it. Obviously, for today, 7:05 start on Apple TV. I don't know why. There's too many T's. There's T's in the chat.
Well,
there's
we got
T's
Tyrese. We got Tyreek Hill's a big story
I'm realizing
right now.
Tim and Tyreek are in the chat. We've got
Tyreek
Taiwan
Bailey,
and Tyler. Holy moly. I was actually going to respond to Tyreek's comment, but it's fine. Taiwan Walker, Tyler McGill pitching off to start today. For those of you guys... Tyler's, it's a T day. Yeah, for sure. And we're going to absolutely see all of our predictions come true. It's just going to be a home run derby today for the Phillies as we are talking
I do think they're going to take 3 or 4 from the Mets. We'll see. Both teams have Monday off. The weather's going to suck this weekend. I just saw before we went on YouTube here, potential 2 to 4 inches of rain in the area.
It keeps changing, though, of when it's going to hit.
So there's a good chance with the Mets and Phillies off on Monday. We're going to have some action on Monday as well. Hopefully not both, but yes. Look, nice little header there. And stay tuned.
Up next, we've got soccer coming up.
I was going to say, stay tuned for Renee coming up. She's got a special guest in studio today, El Capitan of the Philadelphia Union, Alejandro Bedoya, coming up. So make sure you stay tuned for that. But I think they're going to take 3 or 4 from the Mets this weekend for sure.
Oh, boy, I just hit a light. Okay, I'm going to stop playing. So, yes, we have more to come on PHLY Phillies podcast. I know earlier in the chat someone was asking, and I did not forget your question. I just forgot your name. It was also a team name, though, that we are going to have shows for the postseason. There it is, Trevor. For the postseason, we will have pre- and post-game shows that you'll be able to tune in for because we have to make sure that come playoff time, come right October, we're also locked in and dialed in. And then after, this is not going to happen for a long time because the Phillies are going the distance. Then we will still have shows in the offseason as we're breaking down everything that's happened in the offseason, looking at the farm system, looking at the draft, just keeping an eye on spring training,
winter
hopefully being
meetings.
at spring training. Woo. We'll have some fun. We'll have some trivia for you. So more to come here on PHLY Phillies podcast. As Jamie mentioned, stay tuned because in 30 minutes, I'll be back here with El Capitan, Ali Bedoya from the Philadelphia Union, our first in-studio guest that we're having that's a player for PHLY sports shows. So tune into that. And for all of you guys, tune into us on Monday. That's wild. We're not back until Monday. Have a great weekend. Go Phillies. Subscribe, like, and comment. And we'll see you back for more PHLY Phillies podcast come Monday, 1 o'clock.
Is it?
Dun-dun-dun. It is 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time live on YouTube and across podcast platforms if you miss it. Have a great weekend, guys.
We all silly like the mayor.